Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PSGL. Round 5 is here, and we're heading to the Austrian Grand Prix as season 43 now reaches the halfway point. And last time out, we're at Madrid, where Kevin Zuckerberg produced a brilliant drive to take his first victory of the season, controlling the race with fantastic consistency, whilst many of the drivers predictably struggled behind him to match his pace, with Richard following home in second and Simon completed the podium, while Krishy could only manage fourth with a mistake towards the end that cost him a dear podium. But crucially, that result was enough to take the championship lead away from Botti after his 2 rounds absence. Krishy now sits on 33 points as he's only 1 point ahead of Botti, while Fleur only sits 3 backs with 30 points to his name. The championship at this stage couldn't be closer towards the halfway point. Now we arrive at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. It may look simple on paper, a short lap, but one that leaves absolutely no room for complacency. Long straights and heavy braking zones make this one of the better tracks for overtaking, thankfully, as we see Madrid was underwhelming for his debut, while the run down towards Turn 1 is going to create many battles and hopefully opportunities as well in the Grand Prix. With only a handful of corners, the margins are incredibly small. One mistake, one poor exit, or one track limit warning can completely swindle your race. So 5 rounds down, 5 to go. Krishy is leading the championship but only by a few points. Botti is hunting him down, and Botti is back after taking a sabbatical in the last few races. I think he's been on holiday as predicted in the summer, so hopefully he can return with a bang. But talk about Richard, he's the first one to start a fly lap in the Alpine. My name is Jay Morris, and alongside me tonight is my Dutch co-commentator Milan Lange. Milan, hello mate, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very good, thank you very much, and great to be back with a much larger grid than last week, and also seeing some good names return, including our former championship leader Botti, F3 champion last season, and he will be looking to take that 3rd win of the season. He's won every single race so far that he started, and he's also got a new teammate, which is Richard Wicke, who unfortunately invalidated though through turn 1. So he has backed off and will try again. But he's got the time to do so because this is one of the shortest tracks around the track, as the Williams ahead of him spins around through turn 4. And the Alpine has to go around him to avoid contact and a potential grid penalty. And it was Christian who made that mistake in the Williams. But he's able to continue without any damage. But every single driver in the session is out on track preparing or going for their first initial flying lap. The question is, who is going to be the first one to set that lap time, as what runners now spread out across the track. I think QDR Simon in the Mercedes might be the first one to set a lap time. He comes out of the final corner now. Kevin goes quickest first with a 103.886, last race winner. Simon goes second with a 103.9, so a couple of hundredths of a second away from the Red Bull driver who is looking to turn around his season. He missed the 2 opening races, then had a poor result at Spa after a collision in the early stages, but after last week's redemption, he's looking to build up from that momentum and get himself back up the order in the championship. And he's doing that so far with a decent banker lap.
Botti, who had his championship lead taken away from him, is now up into P3 with a 4.0. What can he do on his return? Last season champion in F3, currently sitting in P3, and we'll see if he can try and progress from there as well. As Mokalai in the Racing Bull for finishment is up into P5 ahead, and Nicholas, as the first rounds are starting to open up in these lap times. An 18-minute qualifying session. Every single driver, like you said, is out there trying to put a banker on the board. You don't have to go quickest, of course. It's just trying to get a reference point, a feel for the track, ready for the last moments in qualifying. As Lou rounds the final corner, a quiet race back at the Madrid Grand Prix as he crosses the line, but of course that is not representative to what he could do to his standards then. So we're going to see him complete another lap as Richard goes up into first place with a 3.837. The first man out on the circuit has just topped the timing sheets, and he's only just ahead. These margins are going to be so finite, so minimal as well, as we see this track is only, I think it's 5.3 kilometers long. I did check it, but I don't think that is accurate. I think it's shorter than that, so just bear with me for if I did make a mistake on that one as well. I did have the track map on my screen, but it's gone now. As the Barcelona goes up into P7 in the McLaren, had a decent start to the season so far, has the Barcelona. Can he continue his progress? I know last season was a bit of a struggle for him, but we'll see if he could try and produce some good more results. A new driver in the frame, which is, I can't pronounce his name properly, so do apologise, but I'm going to call him Zek as he rounds the final corner, turn 10, as the Recaro driver now reaches to the line. He goes up into 8th place ahead of Mertz, as Eric in the Haas goes up into P6. Both Haas's had a terrible race back in Madrid, didn't they? Eric sustained damage on the first opening lap of the race, while his teammate also struggled too. So hopefully both Haas's can bounce back. I know both Haas's in real life in F1 scored 4th and 5th for their best finish in F1 at the time as well. Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean securing that result, and Haas of course have never picked up a podium at all in the actual F1. Ryan then, let's see what he could do as he makes his return back to the picture. We did see him back in the British GP, but there was glitches with the safety car. Oh, I think he should have won that Grand Prix. Well, of course, I think the game had different ideas. His AI pitted him and it cost him the race win. What can Ryan do on his return? He marches to the line, goes up into P3, just ahead of his teammates.
Good lap time indeed, and it shows how incredibly close it is already to winning the top 4. With 4 drivers so far in the 103s. There's only 3 drivers left who haven't set a representative lap time yet so far, including the Audi of Harman, who's coming out of the final corner on a decent lap so far. Let's see what he can do. Almost won the Belgian Grand Prix. He's going to go to B4, also with a 103.9, so the top 5 within a tenth of each other around this incredibly short track, of course, with the shortest lap time on the field. But the majority of the drivers have made their way back into the pit lane and will be going out quite soon for their second runs, as Lucas in the Williams out there in P19 has set a 135 so far, but looking to get a good lap time on the board this time around. But he goes out wide out of the final corner, and that unfortunately isn't the validation. It would have been a 104.251, would have put him in P10, but unfortunately just ran out a little bit too wide coming out of the final corner, and we'll have to try again. But he's still got 11 minutes to do so, so he's just going to have to make his way back into the pit lane. And Bessel in the Haas, I presume he also invalidated on his first run. He's back in pit lane and he will be trying as the drivers are starting to go back out on track, including the man currently on provisional pole position, but not by much though. Rich Wicke only half a tenth of a second ahead of Kevin Zonnebjerg. But let's see what he can do in his new Alpine full-time seat. He took over the seat of Cole, who was on the podium in the opening race of the season. Actually was an Alpine 1-2 with Botti winning that race, Cole P2, but after that Cole didn't race again and now has given up his seat. But Richard Wicke, the highest reserve driver in the championship, will be looking to take care of that seat and hopefully score some more good results for the Alpine team.
Indeed, finished P2 back in Spain to Richard Wicke, but on board with the Aston Martin as he flicks the car through turn 9, a bit washed through turn 9 there, but still hooks it up as we come through the final corner of this racetrack. Let's see what the Aston Martin driver can deliver. Goes up into P6 ahead of Botti there, as we see the rest of the drivers there preparing for their second laps as well. This qualifying absolutely goes by quickly as well, as we see Botti open up a second lap, heading towards the uphill climb towards turn 1 we go. Hits the apex very nicely there, leans on the curb on the outside, very important. Now straight mode and battery all the way through turn 2 and turn 3. Takes a very different line. We see many people take an acute line through turn 2, but he opens it up as we head towards turn 3. It's very pivotal to cover off all the speed through turn 3. Momentarily went into first gear, if my eyes weren't deceiving me there, as he's back on the throttle once again. It is so vital to get traction right through turn 3 as he runs you up in towards turn 4 we go. Another braking zone, flicks the car in second gear, back on the power as soon as the car is straightened up as we now make our way through the right hand of turn 5, turn 6. This can be a little bit tricky as well. Be very wary on the inside curve there. Bring it out wide. His middle sector is going to be almost 0.2 of a second in the middle sector. Botti is flying. Where can that place him? Can he continue this lap through the last few corners of this racetrack? Turn 9 and turn 10. Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen recently spun there and crashed there too. Botti has just overstepped the boundaries. What could this lap time could have been? A 3.6. How frustrated is that? Invalidated through turn 10. He must be so frustrated. All the hard work is done, but turn 10, it catches a lot of victims. He won't be the first or the last to do that indeed. And yeah, Richard Wicke then goes on to pole position with a 3.7. He's absolutely flying. Is the reserve driver. He's a tenth ahead of Kevin Zonnebjerg. Kevin's backed off. I think he made a mistake going through turn 4 there. I just saw the car sliding and reluctant to turn in. So it looks like he has backed off there, unfortunately, and has to go for another run potentially on no set of soccer pod tyres. Many drivers in the field are invalidated too. Christian goes up into P9 in the Williams. He used to compete in F3 a couple of seasons ago. Now he's back and he's currently in P9, is the TRT driver. So let's see how he does then on his return back. But who else out there cooking up so far? A Storm. Nobody, as Ryan has backed off there as well for good measure. Harm's coming through turn 1. Simon's a 10th up in the first sector. Let's go on board with Simon then. Let's see how he progresses. Down towards turn 4 he goes. Nope. He's also invalidated. Not surprised though, a lot of drivers there suffering with invalidation, struggling to keep it within the track limits. But of course, every single driver trying to find a maximum mile lap time, trying to push the boundaries of this racetrack. It's what you want to do, but it's just so easily overdone, stepping the boundaries, and that's exactly what a few drivers have done indeed then. So a lot of drivers out there, but not really lights up the timing sheets. Just trying to find a driver on a lap time. Vessel's dive off track there in turn 3. Mukalai is not lap time. Mertz is not either. Nicholas goes up into P16 in the Audi then. So an underwhelming performance from him so far, because his teammates up into P4. And Harm in the Audi has unfortunately invalidated too through that middle sector. And a lot of drivers on their second lap just struggling, as Kevin there looks like he's gone for the lap time but backed off because he was up slightly in the first sector, but must have made a mistake somewhere in the breakers of turn 3 or turn 4. Is that Botti going for lap time? Let's see his middle sector. Yes, he's going for another lap time on the same set of soft compound tyres, so has complete confidence in the car as he grabs a slight slipstream at the back of the Red Bull driver, but he is pitting at the end of his lap time.
Yeah, might have been because of the traffic he encountered at the end, the exit of turn 3. A lot of cars on the left and right hand side, so he thinks this lap is not going to be good enough. So he's going back into the pit lane early and will try to reset and put on some new tires and try again towards the end of the session. Of course, we already saw him set a 103.6. Of course, it was invalid through the final corner, but he has got the pace to put himself out there on potentially pole position. Could be another an Alpine 1-2, who knows. As Kevin, he's gone for another lap right now as well. Like you mentioned, he made a mistake on his previous lap. It was through turn 4, just a little bit too optimistic on the brakes, and the back end stepping out immediately. Let's see how he's going to do it this time around. Much more committed and looks way cleaner as he accelerates out of turn 4 through turn 5 and now heading towards the left-hander of turn 6. He will need to find over a tenth of a second to be able to beat Richard Wicky's time, and he's up by over a tenth of a second in the middle sector. Hits the inside curb slightly there, but hasn't lost too much time with that. Now using that battery down this little back straight, heading towards these final 2 corners where invalidating is just so easy to do. We've seen it multiple times already this session, but he has kept it clean out of the final corner. Kevin is going to cross the line and he is going to go B2. He misses out by 18 thousandths of a second from Richard Wicky. Incredibly close between the two, but unfortunately for him, just not quite enough to match the Alpine's lap time. What about the Aston Martin in P6? He's going to go up to P3. Great lap time there from Grovak. He goes ahead of Ryan by a few hundredths of a second and finds himself currently on the second row of the grid, as the majority of the drivers are going back in pit lane because they'll be preparing for their final runs. There's 5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. At the moment it's still Richard Wicky out on pole position, but that pole position is not certain at all because there's so many drivers behind him who have looked so quick in this qualifying session, but either haven't been able to put it together by invalidating or just making those little mistakes. But we've got the top 10 within 0.3 of a second. Fleur down in P10, of course, third in the championship, and his teammate, our championship leader Krishy, is not racing tonight, so that opens up the opportunity for Botti to retake the championship lead. But he still needs to find a clean lap time because we know he's got the pace, but he needs to keep it within the white lines on these final runs. As we've got 4 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. Richard Wicky still out on provisional pole position, but can he hold on and take that point?
Indeed then, I don't think slipstream in qualifying is allowed, so that's why you don't see teammates there helping each other in tandem to give themselves the best chance on their flying lap. It has been banned for a couple of seasons as Harm threads the needle through turn 1. That can be very tricky indeed. If you take too much curve on the inside, it will unstable the balance of the car. Through turn 2 and turn 3, you can see the outer layout is the chicane Austria for MotoGP, as MotoGP had a big injury back in, well, not an injury, but a big crash back in 2020 when I think Zarco and Morbidelli crashed there in turn 2. And Harm has backed off. He was up slightly in the first set towards Harm, but feels the need to back off. Maybe he made a slight mistake through turn 3, maybe the traction or the exit wasn't to his liking, so he knows he can improve there. So he's in sync with everybody else as the dying stages of qualifying are starting to approach us then. So we're going to see all the drivers there make the dash out on the track. But drivers come out early, which means they want potentially a second lap time. This is my tactic too. I like to go out there early because you've always got a second run, just in case you don't do it on the first one on the new set of the soccer pod tires. Of course, you get 3 sets or 4 sets, depends what strategy you choose before the game, before we get in the lobby. Balanced, harder, or can't remember the other one now, softer I think it is at the time. But let's go on board with Richard Ricky because we haven't been on board with him and I want to see how he does on his flying lap. So use the battery out the final corner as the DRS, sorry, not the DRS, the straight mode is activated through turn when it goes, but there is track evolution. Yes, there is always a track evolution. The track will get grippier and grippier and the lap times will get better, and as the drivers will start to also improve as well. Coming towards the end of the first set, so he's up slightly in the first set, so look at him sliding through turn 3. They're in first gear. We don't really see many people using first gear nowadays, but it is implemented back in this game as he opens up the rear and front when going down into towards turn 4. This is a downhill braking zone. A lot of drivers losing the rear of the car, maybe the BB, the brake bias, is set towards the rear, and that's why the short struggle as well as we now flick our way through turn 6, carrying the minimum speed all the way through the corner. As you can see, a slight moment has cost him dearly and he has to back off that lap time, then re-energize the battery and go for it once again. So a mistake there for Richard Ricky, who was trying to better his lap time, because I think everybody else out there will improve. Botti coming towards the end of this set. So look at him up again. Can he keep it clean this time? I think he made a mistake on his previous lap around this part of the track, but looks like he's kept it nice and clean as there's a bit of traffic in front of us, but they will get out of the way very quickly. As Botti, can he keep it nice and tight in the final corner? Yes, he can. Back on the power. What's he going to do as he crosses the line right now? It is pole position just by the skin of his teeth ahead of Richard there. But Richard is backing off very, very slowly indeed as he's trying to save the battery and go for once again. Maybe cool his tyres down as well because you want the tyres to be working. Ryan's on pole for the first time since Silverstone. But Kevin Soderberg is improving. Look at the gap between P1 and P4, just under a tenth of a second. These are fine margins indeed between every single driver. 4.3 kilometers this track is, 10 corners, and yet these guys are super close. Kevin is now making his way towards the final corner. What can he do? Can he stamp his authority back at the time machines? Yes, he can. He's on provisional pole with a 3.6, and the first driver in the 3.6s. We did see somebody else do it, but they validated their lap time indeed then. Every single driver is out there on the track looking to improve. Harm has backed off again. Has he got the time to go for another lap time? It's going to be nip and tuck towards the end, you know. He's going to get a move on if he wants another lap time on the board there. We're seeing Simon now navigate his way around the traffic through turn 7 and turn 8. What can he do? Simon has been to a podium before as well back at the Madrid Grand Prix. Let's see if he can try and better his position. He now rounds the final corner. The Mercedes there very close to the track limits. He goes across the line and it is P4. That is a respectable lap time indeed ahead of Richard. Richard is down in this Brosetta, but can he find any more time? The answer is no, he could not improve. Sabu in the Cadillac goes P8 there ahead of Lou, who's down in the first sector. Done and dusted for him. He has invalidated his lap time, so he won't better his position. Fleur through in the sector by 0.2 of a second. Had an underwhelming race back in Madrid, but we'll see what the raceable driver could do as he took the victory back at the Belgian Grand Prix. But since then, it has been on the downer so far. But let's see, can he get himself at least in the top 10? Yes, he can. The top 6. It's P6 for Fleur, just behind Richard Ricky. And can anybody else out there improve their positions at the final stages in qualifying? Looks like nobody can really challenge Kevin Soderberg. Here comes the Barcelona Army. Here he comes across the line. It's only P14. That's going to be disappointing for his standards. He took a podium, didn't he, a couple of races ago. Vessel in the Haas. Both Haas's, like I said, have been struggling as he now navigates the final corner. He goes or stays P17 in the Haas. Perfect timing too. As we see Lucas only P17. He is a reserve driver. I think somebody else just leapfrogged ahead. I think it was Harm in the Audi. He goes up into P7 ahead of the Aston Martin. Grokov there, who's in P8. But that is it then. Qualifying has been concluded. And at the final stages, it's Kevin Zunderberg who took a victory back in Madrid and once again continues his momentum here in Austria.
Indeed, and it was a great lap time. With a 103.6, we saw Botti do that earlier, but it is Kevin who pulls it off in the end and takes that pole position to close in by 1 more point towards Chrissy in the championship. But like you said, he has built from the momentum of last week where he won in Madrid, and now he's going to be starting from the front of the field once more and looking to make it back-to-back victories this season. But you can see how close it is between the top 5, 66 thousandths separating them. That just shows how competitive it is and how competitive it's going to be in the race as well. And Barcelona said in the chat that it's going to rain in the race. Towards the end of the race, we'll be expecting from wet weather. So that is going to be quite interesting as well. Of course, in the wet, the overtake mode is disabled, so you've got no more battery management, which you, of course, is a key factor on this game. But in the wet, that is going to be disabled, so it's going to be about pure pace and trying to find a way past. So we'll see when the rain is going to arrive, but that might spice things up towards the end of the race, and drivers might have adjusted their setups a little bit to adjust towards the wet weather that is incoming. But Kevin is going to have the best view from the front row, but this track is notoriously known for having long trains of cars, formerly known as DRS trains, of course, when the DRS is not active anymore with these new regulations, but those trains will be there as well. And this time with the battery management, he's just going to have to stay in that lead train and hope for the best. Now, I do wonder, are drivers going to try and start on the hard tires and make it all the way towards the wet weather? We don't know when the weather is going to arrive, but we don't know that it is probably going to rain. So it's going to be interesting to see how drivers are going to adapt with their strategies to that.
Indeed, their strategy could be critical here in this race. I think it is a two-stop strategy in the dry conditions, but we don't know when the rain will affect the circuit there. In Austria, of course, first introduced in 1964, then the A1 ring returned in 1997. It's had a lot of sabbaticals and hiatuses, has this track. The Austrian Grand Prix dropped off the calendar at the end of 2003, then came back in 2014 as it's been revitalised the circuit and returned. But I can't wait to see how this race transforms then. Of course, 2014, I remember that race as well. I remember Felipe Massa taking his last pole position here in 2014, but of course it was Mercedes 1-2. Rosberg and Hamilton struggled in qualifying. I remember Hamilton spinning at the turn 1 and turn 3. It was Massa and Bottas leading the race, but I think Mercedes' pace was just too outright and too far ahead of the Williams capacity then, so they couldn't win the race on pure pace. But yeah, Williams did a mega job here in 2014. I believe at the end of the race it was Bottas who took the podium ahead of Massa, so yeah, it was a shame for Massa because it looked like it's on his journey to Williams. That call, by the way, from 2013 to 2014 to go from Ferrari to Williams was genius there for Massa. Of course, at the time, it looked very silly, but of course, Williams rejuvenated and finished third in the constructors, took a massive amount of podiums too for good measure, and it was a very good season for them indeed. But since then, it's been downhill, of course. Carlos Sainz and Albon extending their contract in F1, but of course, Williams at the moment don't look too promising. But James Vowles hopefully can deliver and cook something up. Niki Lauda as well, the home favourite and the home hero. And turn 1 is called Lauda Curve. He took his first win here back in 1984, the legend of F1 who sadly passed away in 2019 when Hamilton won the Monaco Grand Prix. But this race has had some controversy too. Back in 2002, if people remember, Rubens Barrichello dominated all the race. But never mind, we'll talk about that for another time because the race here is about to get away very shortly. It's a quick start and we are underway for the Austria Grand Prix. Ryan jumps ahead of Kevin Zunderberg. Kevin's under pressure from Botti as they go wheel to wheel towards turn 1 we go. Botti has the inside line. Kevin goes off the track. It is Ryan ahead of Botti, ahead of Kevin. So Kevin's had a dismal start there, a bit overwhelmed. And now he's got the other Alpine of Richard right behind. We climb towards turn 2 and turn 3. On the brakes again. Heavy braking zone towards turn 3. There's 3 abreast. The Aston Martin in a sandwich. And the Mercedes there almost in a spin. Gets collected up by somebody there in the pack. Aggressive and damn down the brakes as they were. Usual jockey for position as we head down towards turn 4. There's the Alpine on the attack. Kevin Zunderberg is losing places left, right, centre. Can he defend against the Alpine and making an Alpine one through to compound the misery from Kevin's start? But no, Kevin stays in P3. Meanwhile, more swapping and changing at the back towards the rear in the mid pack because the Aston Martin and the Cadillac side by side. Magneto is up into P7 in the Cadillac ahead of Gravak in P8 as Eric makes a place ahead of Lou. But so far so good for Ryan. Got a perfect start got a perfect launch, had the inside line towards turn 1 and took the lead as you want to. Lap 1 is concluded. More people in the background there, jockey position. As we know, the first lap is make or break, and certainly Ryan has made it, but Kevin has broke it, and Kevin has to try and do something about it. He's in the best spot though. P3 is a very good spot there to try and make up for lost ground, but so far the overtake mode has been activated, and this is where the race begins.
It was Simon who got attacked by one of the Cadillacs in turn 3 that lost him a lot of time on the exit and a lot of positions as he's down in P9. He was one of the drivers who started on the hard tires. There's more contact in the background, I think, as they're almost 3-4 wide on the exit of turn 3, and Lewis in the middle there of Eric and Sabu, and is having to see that position as the Haas and the Cadillac going wheel to wheel into the braking zone, and there's another driver, the Audi up the inside, as well. A lot of fighting in the early stages of this race as Kevin has been overtaken by Richard Wicke through turn 6. The Alpine is now up into the podium positions, and Kevin has dropped another position, started on pole position, but is down to P4 by the end of lap 2, as the fighting continues down in the midfield with Lou and Eric swapping positions once again, and now it's Nicholas going around the outside as well to put himself in P13, but there is 4 drivers who have started this race on hard tires. It is Harman in P6, Simon in P9, Lucas down in P17, and Christian down in P19. So those drivers will be expecting to go along, as not a poor exit there from Fleur coming out of turn 1 might put him under a bit of pressure, as Kevin is also looking to get back up the inside of the Alpine, but it is Richard Wicke on the defense. Now Kevin will try to go for the switchback, but is not quite able to get the traction and will have to sit behind for the time being, as Botti is also doing that at the back of Ryan, not wanting to overtake, just sitting behind and save up the tire, save the battery, and don't fight too much in the early stages of this race, because it's a long race. There's no point in fighting that hard at the very beginning of the race. So Ryan still out there in the lead, but with 33 laps to go, anything could happen. But he's followed close now by the 2 Alpine drivers with Kevin in P4.
You certainly want to settle into a rhythm very quickly in this race as well, because things will start to settle down. You won't see many drivers, especially at the front of the field, just constantly fighting, because they want to manage the gap all the way towards the pit stop strategies as well. Undercuts will be very powerful, so that's something to watch out for. But Ryan is in the lead of the race once again, as we saw back in the British GP. He was leading, but I think Botti was one of the drivers who spun out turn 1 in Silverstone, but yet still managed to win as I disconnected from that lobby. It was a messy lobby indeed. Here was Botti on the attack. Botti versus Ryan. This could be a pass for the lead of the Grand Prix, and Botti sells pass, but I don't think Ryan will give one iota about that, because he knows he can sit behind Botti and trade places. The top 2 have control in this race in terms of swapping and changing in this pack, so of course Ryan won't fight too hard against him and doesn't want to waste any of his battery too. It's a long speed game of chess here, as we see the Aston Martin defending against the Cadillac, who's on the inside. Regnetto there trying to squeeze one of the inside of turn 4. Now they are wheel to wheel out of the corner. This is going to continue all the way down towards turn 6, but the Aston Martin just holds his line there and stays in P7. Does he? Yes, he does. Went a bit wide through turn 6, but of course that's the racing line and stays ahead. Of course, it's difficult to go side by side through there, but we've seen some great action in the past, and a lot of drivers as well subsequently get pushed off the track through turn at number 6 and 7 as well. We saw Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen. That was a great battle for the lead of the Grand Prix. We saw Perez and Leclerc going side by side. I think Leclerc was pushed off the track in 2021, but yeah, we've seen some amazing battles there before as well. You're going to see battles everywhere around this racetrack, through turn 1, turn 2 and turn 3, 4 as well, 6, 7, 8, maybe towards turn 9 as well, if some drivers fancy a go before turn 9, use their batteries to get ahead of the rivals. I've seen it before as well. In the old game, you don't really see many battles there, but on this game, you definitely do, because some places, a lot of drivers catch each other out. As Regnetto finally gets past the Aston Martin driver, goes up into P7, and has been threatening that move since lap 1 and gets ahead. It's only lap 5. This race is flying by as well for good measure, as we see the Audi of the Mercedes of Fleur and Harm have swapped places. Harm, of course, is on the hard compound tyre. He did this back in Belgium, and it worked to good effect. But can he do it here at the Austrian Grand Prix? I think it's a sort of strategy maybe for the medium runners, but we'll see how all it transpires later on in this race. There is 4 Harvarders, like you said, Simon, Lucas and Christian down at P20, who's running a lonely race. Is that Simon looking for a move? Yes, it is. Down the inside towards the final 2 corners. A great, brave move there for Simon. It could have ended in tears between the 2, as contact could have been made, but Simon muscles him up into P8 and looking good on the hard compound tyres. Mokalai down in P19 has pitted off the mini compound tyre. I wonder if he sustained any damage. We'll let you know if he does or not, but we have to continue with this battle because I think the Aston Martin could be looking for a move against Simon once again. Looking to try and reclaim some lost ground. Here he comes. Here comes McLaren as Kevin Zuckerberg has overtaken Richard and puts himself into P3. There's battles everywhere on the track you go. And Kevin gets ahead of Richard and looks to try and regain some lost ground he sustained in the first lap of the Grand Prix. Looks like he's got himself into some sort of consistency and momentum as well, as the Barcelona Army, who had a dismal qualifying, is now up into P9 in the race.
Confirmation that there was front wing damage for Moikulai as Lucas has spun coming out of turn 4 and sees his teammate driving past. Not sure where Moikulai picked up that damage. Could be in lap 1, could be on the previous lap, because we did see a spin from Christian early on through turn 1 as Sabu has found a way past Nicholas. He's now in P11 as once again the Williams has spun, but Sabu in P11, he's lost the connection towards the top 10. The gap's 1.3 seconds, and that might prove to be very costly, because he is going to be struggling to stay close and will have to use quite a bit of battery to get back within that 1 second. He desperately needs to have that advantage, to not having to use too much of his battery. But at the moment the gap stays at 1.1 as Ragnato is looking up the inside of Fleur into the braking zone of turn 3. Who's going to have the better traction though? That is the question. The RB is still hanging around the outside, but the Cadillac will have the inside line for the braking zone of turn 4, and he's going to pull ahead. So Ragnato pulling off some fine moves so far in this race, and the Cadillac driver into the top 6, Fleur down in 7th as Harman is having a look, because Kevin has had a moment. Kevin has made a mistake coming out of turn 4, and the Alpine goes back through of Richard Wicke. He lost traction on corner exit, might have activated the boost mode a little bit too early, and of course he made that mistake. Harman is now looking very close in the back as well to get the move done on these hard tires. He's gonna want to get by as soon as possible to really use these hard compound tires. As Richard Wicke now, because of that mistake, you can see the gap forming between the Alpine and the Mercedes of Ryan. It's around 9/10 of a second, but not quite enough for Ryan to break away from the Alpine, and Richard Wicke should have the boost mode on this lap as Kevin runs out wide now through turn 1 as well. He really seems to be struggling in this race and is making quite a few mistakes. Just needs to get back into the rhythm and follow closely and not push too much in this stage, as that is the Mercedes of Ryan going very deep as well through turn 3 and losing a couple of tenths of a second towards our race leader Botti. But so far so good at the front of the field. We're on lap 8 of 36 and Botti maintains that lead ahead of Ryan, Richard and Kevin, still staying there in P4 but under big pressure from the Audi of Harman.
Yeah, just want to mention the biggest losers and the biggest gainers in this race then. So Ragnato storming to the field. We've seen some incredible overtakes from the Cadillac driver. He's up into P6, gained 5 places. The biggest loser in all that is Christian from P13 to P18 then, so lost some ground. And Kevin, retrospectively, has gone from 1st to 4th as well in this race. And under pressure from his fellow Dutch compatriots of Harm, who is looking very comfortable on the hard compound tyres. I suspect the medium compound tyres at this stage of the Grand Prix is starting to deteriorate, hence why we're seeing some people struggle with their rear tyres as well. Like you mentioned, the boost mode as well, that can give you an urge of energy, as off the track in the background, that is Fleur, who goes for an excursion off the track there under pressure from Simon. Simon gets past, but I want to mention the guys that foot the field now, because look at Kevin on the prowl once again. As soon as he makes a mistake, he always finds some time and gets back as well. So it looks like Kevin Zuckerberg, every time he makes a mistake, he's charging through. So he needs to minimize his mistakes in this race. But look at this, down towards turn 4 we go. Richard having to defend from Kevin, who's under pressure himself by Harm, who's looking very quick at this stage in the race too. Eric gets ahead on McLaren. Jonathan goes side by side as Harm gets past Kevin. Can't believe I missed that. But Harm now goes up into P4 on the hard compound tyres. The Dutchman looking very rapid so far in this race, and he's picking drivers off one by one as well. The man who is a content creator and also on a pad too. It's incredible what he can do on a pad, and it gives people like me, who's also on a pad, some hope as well. But of course, on this game, I do struggle massively. His teammate, on the other hand, is fighting with Eric down in P4 to 15, and the Barcelona is in the pit lane at the end of lap 9 then. So undercuts and pit stops will start to happen at this stage. Could that cause a chain reaction and trigger some more pit stops as well, as the Barcelona will rejoin all the way towards the back of the field? But crucially looking for the undercut of the guys ahead, because he was stuck in this train. And when you are stuck in this train, the only options are looking to try and do the undercut, of course. And that's exactly what he's done. Can he leapfrog the guys who are currently in this big train? And won't these guys respond as well on this lap towards the end of lap 10? But so far, Botti and Ryan have control ever since the first lap of the race. They've been trading places, and looking very, very good so far in this Grand Prix. The last time these two were together, Botti and Ryan, if I remember correctly, was back at the Dutch GP last season in F3. And we know what happened there. Botti and Ryan pitted at different times. Botti got ahead of the Kick Sauber drivers, so I think Gatsu and I can't remember who the other one was, but it was the two Kick Sauber drivers, and Ryan was stuck behind both of them. He could not overtake them on older tyres, and that what cost him during the race. Botti was able to pull away in clean air, whilst Ryan had to fight both Kick Saubers and ultimately lost him in the race as well, and Ryan picked up a podium on that day, whilst Botti went on to win. But so far, they are close to get on the track. More people pitting. Grokov in the Aston Martin has gone for a pit stop down in P15. As we now charge towards turn 2 and turn 3, is Ryan looking for a move against Botti? Nope, he's very, very happy to abide and sit there in P2, not looking to overtake. He's keeping control. He is in an Alpine sandwich in between Botti and Richard Ricky. Richard Ricky's doing a mega job so far. He is a reserve driver, and so far the highest reserve driver in P4 in the Drivers' Championship. If he is a full-time driver, could we see him make a late stage and charge up? Botti's teammate was Cole at the time. Cole is not here, and those two worked in tandem together beautifully towards the last part of the season. Botti needed a teammate who was competent and strong, and he definitely got that as well, because he was fighting for a championship, and Cole helped him in the later stages to defend against the drivers he was fighting with as well. Lap 11, these guys are not looking to pit yet. Kevin Sunderberg is, I suspect, because he's had enough of those medium compound tyres. Now, he did cut the white line on the entry. There is a strict rule book in there. Unfortunately, I caught him, and other drivers may have caught him too. And I think he might have to take a bit of pain. And talk about pain, Richard Ricky has been pushed back into P4. Harm is progressing to the field very nicely. He's up into P3, but could we see Richard Ricky on the par once again? No, he doesn't.
Bit of a correction is that Richard Vicky now is a full-time driver. He did take over the seat of Cole ahead of this race, so he is now a full-time teammate of Botti. And of course, like I said, he is fourth in the championship. He's only 7 points off Krishy in the championship lead, so he's definitely in that championship fight. And now with this full-time seat, could we see him fighting for the championship? Kevin has come out of the pit lane in B15 in clean air. He's got 4.5 seconds to Christian ahead, and just around a second ahead of the Bart Tsunami, who made that undercut. I think he did the undercut last week in Madrid as well. He's around 1.1 seconds away from Kevin, but Harman is so close to the back of Ryan as the top two will be continuing on. Richard Wicke will not be continuing on. He's coming into the pit lane as Nicholas picks up a 3-second time penalty. But now the question is going to be, where is Richard Wicke going to come out compared to Kevin? As we might see some more pit stops. Yes, we will. Sabu into the pit lane in the Cadillac. But also a lot of drivers still continuing on. Nicholas in the Audi also coming into the pit lane. Richard Wicke will be going from mediums to hards. Should be his only slick pit stop in this race. Potentially looking to make it towards the potential rain with this set of hard tires. There is Kevin on the outside, and he is going to get ahead quite easily so. And he might even drop behind the Bart Tsunami. Does the Alpine, they're going to be side by side on pit exit. But Richard Wicke, with some help of the battery, is able to stay in front of the McLaren on cold tires. But you can see how powerful the undercut is around this track, because Kevin has got a gap of 1.7 seconds ahead of the Alpine, and Kevin was behind the Alpine before he's made his pit stop, and it was only one lap ago. That is how powerful the undercut is around this track. Now, what are Botti and Ryan going to do on this lap? Are they going to continue on still? Botti will be continuing on, and Ryan is going to do the same thing. So they're really extending this medium stint. Of course, Harman is going to follow, and his tires will be better at this stage than the medium runners. So he might be looking to get past the pair of them to inherit that the race lead, and then try and create a bit of a gap to make his strategy work. As Erik into the pit lane now in the Haas, and Mertz MRP picking up a 3-second time penalty. Ryan is all over the back now of Botti, but does he want to overtake? Cannot risk fighting too much and losing too much time, as Kevin now setting the fastest lap of the race. The Alpine slides his way in towards turn 3, but Botti so far still staying out in the lead ahead of Ryan, with Harman following closely but just not quite able to make that move, and has to sit behind in P3 for the time being.
Yeah, Ryan's just happy to sit there with P2, playing a long game. These two know if they start fighting now, they will hemorrhage so much time. Christian and Kevin swap places there for P10 and P11. That was very crucial because, of course, Christian is on older tyres. Don't want to get caught up with somebody on older tyres indeed, and he'll push himself into P10. Next target is Mersimp. Let's see, can he get past him? Yes, he can. The answer is yes, immediately. But Harm is right at the back of the gearbox of Ryan there, essentially pushed him through the final two corners. His tyres will be much better in comparison balancing towards the top two there. So look to try and pick their way through quickly to get past those two without losing so much time. But of course, he's stuck in P2. Of course, Ryan has the overtake mode on Botti. Here we go through turn one. This is a move up the inside. Can he make a stick? A bit hesitant through there. Yes, he does. I lost a bit of time towards Botti, but is Ryan immediately going to fight back? Is it worth fighting back? Should he stay behind? He knows Harm is on better tyres. You can see the grain in there too on Ryan's right front tyre, but he stays behind. That was very clever from Ryan. He knows there's no point fighting the inevitable and stay P3. Look at the wheel spin he's sustaining through turn 3 there. So it's quite clear as daylight that Botti and Ryan and the McLaren driver in P5 are going for that one-stop strategy, whilst others maybe leaning towards a two-stop or trying to take their tyres as far as they can, but they know the charge from the guys at the front of the field will be coming towards the end of this race as well. And the rain too, the rain period. If Harm can take his tyres all the way towards the rain period, whenever that is, that's a mighty long stint if he can, because apparently there's rain coming towards the end of the race, so it could be a bit of a tall order. But now Botti is pitting, Ryan is pitted too. That is such a sketchy pit lane indeed. I've seen many people, I think last season we saw somebody crash there as well. Through turn out of turn 10, they were just too eager, and they managed to make contact through that particular part of the track. But it is sketchy, but I don't think it will ever change because, I don't think the track organisers will allow it. But Botti and Ryan then are in the pit lane. They should. Let's see where Kevin rejoins. This could be crucial. Can Kevin get ahead of the two? The answer is yes, well ahead, but they have a massive tyre difference towards the end, a massive deficit, an offset too. So let's see how they can use those tyres to good effect to try and hunt them down towards the end of the race. That's a massive undercut, of course, but these two choosing to try and go longer to have the best in towards the end. 20 laps of the hard compound tyres is doable indeed, as we see Botti and Ryan feeding to P8, P9 ahead of Ragnetto. Ragnetto pitted the lap before, and he's now in this train as well between himself and Ryan and Botti. So that is the lead of the race for you. Harm, however, and Simon too. Don't forget Simon in P2 is still there. He's 2 seconds behind Harm. Can he catch up? But Harm's doing a mega job so far. How effective would the strategy be on the newly compiled tyres, possibly in the rain period too? Has he pulled an absolute blinder? And let's say if it rains, like lap 24, 5, 6, and he's still on the hard compiled tyres, he will miss that second stop. He will go from hard to inter, whilst these guys will go from medium, hard to inter, or hard, medium, inter. Botti disposes the Aston Martin and puts himself into P7, of course. A much fresher tyre on the Alpine of Botti, gets past him. Now Ryan has to follow suit immediately if he wants to stay with Botti as we climb towards turn 1. There's no chance of Ryan making a move down the inside. Have to get brave on the brakes towards turn 3, or maybe out drag him before turn 3. Here he is, side by side with the Aston Martin. Rain in 30 minutes, so likely to arrive after the race. Oh, that always, unfortunately, has a twist there. But rain always arrives after the race, doesn't it? Back in the sprint race in the Dutch GP. And what a shame as well, because imagine the Dutch GP with the rain towards the end. Absolute chaos towards the end, absolute pandemonium as well, with all the drivers struggling there. But unfortunately we missed a treat and the rain came. But look at the gap between the top two, stabilising between first and second place. The gap is 1.92 seconds. That's crazy as well, to keep the gap fluctuating between those marks there as well. And let's not forget to mention the McLaren driver who was just pitted. About to say he was taking those tyres a long way in the course of a Grand Prix, and now he's finally pitted off his big compound tyres.
So 16 laps he's done. That is quite impressive. Actually 17 as he pulls into the pit lane. He's going to go to the hard tyres. Definitely will be able to make it to the end. As he's done half the race on the mediums, he's going to have to do the other half on the hard tyres. But he will lose quite a lot of positions because he stayed out so long on those worn out mediums. He will come out probably behind the Haas duo of Erik and Wessel. Here he is in P17. By the way, every driver still running in this race after the halfway point. That is quite impressive. As Ryan and Botti are fighting it out, Ryan has got ahead of Botti and now puts himself in P6. And as I say that, every single driver still running. Moikoli, of course, retires from the race in 5 seconds time. So unfortunately down to 19 we go. But Ryan ahead of Botti. Now they both have caught up to the back of the Bart Tsunami and will look to dispatch the McLaren driver as soon as possible. Of course, they've got a 6-lap tire advantage, so hopefully they will be able to get past quite soon. And then it's a bit of a gap towards Richard Wicke in P4. Richard Wicke, by the way, has also gained a couple of tenths of a second on Kevin, but not too much. The gap is stabilizing quite a bit between those two, but Kevin is also not able to build a gap towards the Alpine driver. Harman and Simon still staying out. Harman has gained a few tenths on the previous lap, as that is the RB coming out of the pit lane. quite dangerously so, as Ryan now has found the way past the Bartsunami, heading towards turn 1, and Botti will be looking to do the same, although there is a yellow flag hanging out there. Now it isn't anymore, so the Alpine has been given a clear way to go around the outside, and he does so. Ryan and Botti on the charge, and back ahead in the background, that is the Aston Martin and Ragnetto once again on the inside. These two have been fighting out quite a bit so far in this race, as another car has retired from the race, that is Mertsim RP. So down to 18 we go, but Ragnetto absolutely on the charts in this race. He's now back at speed 8. He's going to send one up the inside of the Bartsunami, who turns in, and there was contact between the two. I don't think the Bartsunami expected the Cadillac to go up the inside, but Ragnetto was committed towards that. But contact between the two, and the Bartsunami losing a position and might lose another now, as the Grovak is on the inside, but unable to make that move stick. But Ragnetto is desperate to stay with those two in front of him, because he knows that those were the two previous leaders, and he knows that they have the absolute pace in this race. So he wanted to get by the McLaren as soon as possible, but unfortunately was just a little bit too ambitious, and has caused the McLaren of the Bartsunami to lose a position and lose some time, and is now fallen into the clutches of the Aston Martin. We're going to lap 20 of 36. It is Botti who's going to get past Ryan once more. These two working together to close the gap towards Richard Wicke. It is 2.5 seconds. Let's see how quickly he will be able to close that gap with the help of each other. As from lap 20 of 36, Harmon and Simon still staying out on these old hard tires. How long will they be able to take these tires? If the rain is coming after the race, then there's no point in staying out as long as they are. And if we look at the skies, it's still sky blue, so we don't think there's going to be rain coming anytime soon. So it might just be a regular one-stop for these drivers. And Harmon is going to pull into the pit lane at the end of lap 20, as he is. And he will go towards the mediums as he hits he crosses the white line on entry. Unfortunately there as well. And Simon is following him in, so they're going to have to do 16 laps on the medium tires. They will lose quite a bit of time, but they will have a great tire advantage as well. And that is going to give the race lead back to Kevin. Our pole sitter is back at the front of the field by around 1.3 seconds ahead of Richard Wicke, and Botti and Ryan still working together, and the gap is down to 1.8, so they've gained 0.7 of a second on the previous lap.
Indeed then, storm into the field is Botti and Ryan there. These two looking very comfortable and working in tandem at this moment, of course, because they know that they work together and give themselves the best chances to try and close in, then attack each other later on the Grand Prix. That's what I love to see, these guys working in tandem. But of course, when it comes to the latter stages, it's all or nothing between these two. Ryan go for his first win of the season. Botti go for his third win of the season. Botti, every time he's raced, he's won every single time as well. The first two races, he took a sabbatical. In the last two, being on holiday, of course. But can he get his third win of the season and try and retake the championship lead? I think he definitely will, because Krishy is not here tonight. The gap between Krishy and Botti is 1 point. So definitely Botti will leave for Krishy and Fleur. Where is he right now? Fleur is down in P9 there, so it won't make too much of a hindrance for Botti in P3. But Botti has closed in, and Ryan makes a mistake in the final corner too. Carried a bit too much speed to the final corner, but Botti's closed in and has a major tie deficit towards Kevin and Richard too. So Botti has caught up, and let's see how these two work it out. Will Richard, now he's a full-time driver, will he try and will he let his teammate go, work cordially with each other, and let Botti go try and chase after Kevin Soderberg? And Richard could also defend against Ryan and hold him up as well. That could be very good for both RP drivers. So Ryan could be in a bit of a predicament here, in a peculiar situation where Richard and Botti could ultimately work together, and Ryan could be stuck in the Alpine battle there as well. So let's see how it all plays out now. Botti, of course, is caught up on a fresh set of hardcore power tyres, has the best seats in the house in P3, has the best tyres, and he's got 14 laps to try and get after. Well, he's after them right now, but try and overtake Richard and Kevin. It's easier said than done. But of course, on new tyres, he should have a big difference as well. And Ragnetto has picked up a 3-second time penalty. I think the Williams has gone for a spin. Both Williams drivers, Christian's facing backwards, but both Williams drivers have suffered massively in this race, and unfortunately for them, no points for those two down there. Lucas, of course, is a reserve driver, and Christian too, I believe, is in the Williams. Christian hasn't really made much of an appearance this season, has he? Only one race in Silverstone in 15th place, but after that had DNSs, and looks like Christian here will be still struggling in F3. He's trying to find his feet as the full-time driver in the Williams. The top four all bunched up. It was a massive train as Botti goes a little bit wide through turn, but he does like to take the outside line, the high line, to try and launch himself off the corner nicely there as too. So it could be planned and purposeful for Botti. as Lucas there picks up a 3-second penalty in this race. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds between these four. What will the order be? I presume Kevin and Richard will fall backwards in P3 and P4 as Ryan and Botti there ultimately have better tyres and surge past them. Meanwhile, we've got Boss and Army behind Grokov and Regneto. He's right behind him. Of course, he was one of the first drivers to pit in this field from hot, medium to hard. And maybe... Oh, he almost spins the car. Saves it nicely through turn 8. Verstappen spun there back in 2017. And Kevin Zuckerberg has picked up a 3-second time. So that could be huge for this race. And I can see him falling out to the podium. And here we go between the RP drivers. It's a orchestrated swap. Botti moves up into P2. Now, let's see how easily or hard will it be for Ryan to get past the other LP driver of Richard. Can he be a roadblock towards Botti? Let's go in towards turn 3. Ryan's on the outside. And Richard there knows he has to give space because Ryan is there. This is a battle for traction. Both drivers squirming away for traction indeed as they try and out-drag each other towards turn 4. But Richard, P3 has the inside line. Can Ryan go around the outside? There has been contact before in turn 4. And we see Ryan there almost into P3. Has completed the move before turn 6. Can he do it? Yes, he can. He's up into P3. That was very crucial for his race to get past the other RP driver. And now he can set his sights on Botti. The top two, formerly in this race, the first stint, are now together again. And look at Ryan, gets a mega launch off turn 8, but he stays behind, not using that battery, and keeps in P3. But the main target for him is to stay in P3, to stay ahead, of Richard Wiki. He can't afford to let Richard go, because if he does, he may be a roadblock and a second rear gunner for him as well. Let's keep an eye on Harm's progress. Remember, he's on the mid-compound tyres. He's in P6. He's 1.8 seconds behind Magneto. There is 11 laps left to go in this race. The gap to leader is 6.2 seconds. We saw him storm towards the back of Fleur, who had a mega race back in Belgium and won the Grand Prix, but Harm lost it at the final corner, didn't he, after he lost traction. But can Harm close in on these guys and potentially take the win as well?
Well, I've been tracking his progress over the last few laps, and on the last lap he has gained a full second, over a second, towards Kevin and 1.5 seconds towards Richard Wiki. Of course, he's going to have to do a long way on those medium tires, but at the moment he's getting a lot of time, and it's especially helped by the fact that these guys at front are fighting so much. As Kevin is really holding up, Botti is going to go on the inside. There's contact as Botti almost gets spun around there by Kevin, who really backed off there through turn 6 and 7. I'm not sure why. He lifted so much. Through goes Ryan on the inside. Botti back down to P3. That was a bit of a weird moment between Kevin and Botti, but we have got 11 laps remaining in this race. Kevin knows he's going to reach a time penalty, so he's just going to have to try something to hopefully we'll see the drivers behind him make their mistakes as well. But Ryan now in P2, can he find the way past Red Bull Drive? He's got the boost mode, he's got the slipstream, he's got the overtake mode, and he's going to go towards the outside or the inside. Not a lot of space given by the Red Bull, but just enough for the Mercedes to try and go around the outside. Bit of a squeeze there by Kevin, and the Mercedes washes out a little bit too wide, and that allows Kevin to maintain his position. And now once again it's going to be the outside line for Ryan, but Kevin, he's got the battery to defend himself, and he's going to have the inside line towards turn 4 as well. Ryan is going to try all the way around the outside of turn 4, and he's going to get a great exit. It's a brilliant move from Ryan and towards the lead of the race, but Kevin is still holding on towards the outside of turn 6, but he is not going to be able to pull off that, and Ryan becomes our new race leader. What a move that was, around the outside of turn 4, as there's a bit of contact between Kevin and Botti towards turn 7 once again. Second time they've made contact in the last 2 laps, and he's going to go towards the inside of the penultimate corner. It's a bold move for the former championship leader, and Botti has found a way past Kevin, who dropped from P1 to P3 in only a few corners time. Is now going to be under pressure as well from Richard Wiki behind, and Botti is going to retake the position from Ryan. These two have been working together for the entirety of this race, and now they're back in P1 and P2. Botti into the lead of the race on lap 27. Ryan following closely in P2. There it is Kevin, followed by Richard Wiki as the Barcelona is into the pit lane for his second stop, and Harmon is going to get ahead of Ragnato, and that means he has got a clear track ahead of him. He's got 4.5 seconds towards Richard Wiki. No, that is wrong. He's got 3.5 seconds to make up towards the lead train, and with still 9 laps remaining in this race, can he close this gap? Because these 4, they are fighting so hard, and that is gaining the Audi driver some time.
Don't go anywhere, because you got Botti and Ryan fighting for the lead and the last 9 laps of this race, and you got Harm catching these guys hand over fist as well. Whilst these guys are squabbling away, Harm gained a handful of time on the guys ahead, and now the gap is 3.5 seconds. You can see the gap going down to 2.9. That's between himself and Richie Ricky as well. So Harm is coming. Let's see, can he finally get a win for the first time this season? He tried it back in Belgium, but the last lap of the final corner, he went wide and ultimately lost the Grand Prix. It was Krishy, who won the Belgian Grand Prix, not Fleur. Fleur finished in P3, I believe. Kevin Soderberg once again struggling through turn 1 there. He has a 3-second penalty. He's essentially the joker in the pack, is Kevin in P3, the outlier who has got a penalty in this race, and he will not score a podium unless something dramatic happens around him. But Botti, Ryan, do they know? I think they know that Tom is coming, so these two want to call off the fight until the very last stage of the Grand Prix. I don't know who's going to win, you know. Kevin won last week. Yeah, he did. Kevin did win the Belgian Grand Prix last week. He took a fantastic victory, very dominant indeed, and never looked back since then, since lap 1. We've got a multi-course scrap for turn 3, between these guys in the lower pack in the midfield. But I want to keep an eye on Harm's progress. He's gaining a rate of knots on these guys. Look at that, the gap's gone to 2 seconds already, 1.9. He's storming as well. He's absolutely flying on those mini compound tyres. Is Harm. Catching is one thing, overtaking is another. Will he have the grip towards the end to try and overtake these guys? Will he be stuck there in P5 once he catches up to the back of them? But there is only a handful of laps left to go in this race. Who's going to win? Is it going to be Botti, Ryan, Harm? Maybe Richard, depends if something happens to Ryan and Botti. You never know, those two could tangle. But so far, Ryan and Botti are not attacking each other just yet. Because who did he go off the track in turn 1? Did somebody go off the track? Was that my eyes deceiving me? Was it Richard in turn 1? I just cut off him, whoever that was, who went off in turn 1. And he may have picked up a track limit violation. So hopefully he's okay. Let's see if that was Richard or not. I'm not quite sure who that was. Was my eyes deceiving me? I went off too quickly there. I'm not quite sure who it was. But Harm, he does have 2 track limit warnings. So one more transgression means a 3-second penalty. So he's got to be very careful now towards the end, because if he picks up a penalty, that's him definitely out of the fray for the race win or the podium indeed then. So there he is in the background of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. The gap is 1.3. He's that is... Who's that? That is Kevin Soderberg, who made another mistake through turn 8. He's struggling here, unfortunately, in Austria. The man who took pole position, he goes off the track again, and he wipes out the overtake mode in the final corner, goes off the track again. So I think he's driving hot under the collar, and he's driving in frustration. Is the man who won last week in Madrid. And yeah, I can definitely tell from his frustrations that he's not happy indeed. Ryan and Botti close together, coming towards turn 2 and turn 3, but Ryan is not going to pounce just yet. He's playing a long, calculated, methodical game. He's not going to go for it just yet. He wants his best chances on lap 35 or 6 to go for it when the battery's stored up, when he's full of battery, and pounce on Botti. Likewise to Botti as well. He would try and save battery in defense mode to use it all the way down the straights and try and stay ahead of Ryan then. So this is a high IQ play for both of them there. High top tier drivers are both Ryan and Botti, just playing a long game in this race. And Harm is almost there in striking mode of boost. The gap is 1.1 between Richard and Harm, so he's almost caught up. The yellow flags fluctuating around the circuit. And that is Lucas and Eric there, squabbling for P16 and P17. They're having a lonely race down there, unfortunately for those guys. But the end of lap 30, lap 31 is coming. There is 5 more laps to go in this race.
Yeah, it was Eric who went off twice. Hasn't finished the race so far this season. Going down to P17 after 2 offs. And might become our next retirement, who knows. As we've got 6 laps remaining in the race. Botti is still leading by half a second ahead of Ryan. Ryan is not going to be fighting him for these few laps, but he might be on the final one when it's going to be a fight for the race win. Kevin still staying in P3 ahead of Richard Wicke, and Harmon gap is around 1 second. He has got the boost mode as the Grovak with the soft tire sets the fastest lap of the race, not worth a point anymore though, so he's not going to gain anything with it. But Harmon is right on the cusp of getting that boost mode on the next lap as well. Of course, now he's done 10 laps now on these mediums, and those tires will start to wear out. He hasn't got a lot of time to make this work and try and make any moves if he wants to get himself onto the podium. If he gets
Ryan's off the track!
Oh,
sorry to interrupt.
Ryan has gone off, like you said. Yes, he has. He's gone off through turn 8. We saw Kevin make a mistake on the previous lap, and this time it is Ryan, and the Mercedes drops down to P5 out of the fight, 2 seconds behind Botti has now got a clear track ahead of him and behind him, because Kevin is 1.6 behind, and that is a massive moment for the Mercedes. So unfortunate. He was so unlucky in round 1 at Silverstone, where he started on pole position, but this time around he has just made a mistake and drops out of contention down in P5. Harman is now all over the back of the Alpine of Richard Wicke, and is currently, he might be looking at a potential P2 as the Alpine slides his way through turn 3. That is Richard Wicke not finding the grip on those 19 lap of hard tires. Of course, these drivers will be struggling as well with the tire. Both Kevin and Richard Wicke have done quite a long way on these hard tires, and Harman might be looking to get that position quite soon. But Botti has been released, and he's going 3 for 3 with 4 laps to go. He's under no real pressure anymore, because his nearest competitor Ryan has just gone off on the previous lap and dropped out of P5, but he's still in a fight for the podium though, as he's just been trying to close the gap back down to at least salvage something of this race. But that is so unfortunate for the Mercedes driver.
Yep, that small mistake has massive ramifications for his race. He's almost in overtake mode of Harm, but Harm's still pouncing after Kevin and Richard. The highest I think Harm could get is P2 now, because I think Botti is just too far out of reach, and these two will be difficult to overtake. By the way, Jesper said in the chat, rain is in 5 minutes. That was 2 laps ago, so rain will hit the circuit on the last lap of the Grand Prix. I was hoping to hit it earlier on, and that could really spice up and galvanise the race and change things as well, but it will hit us towards the end of the race. But Richard there, you can see him on the back of Kevin, knows that Harm is charging. Can it be a double out? Yes, it will be a double out podium, because here comes Harm down the inside towards turn 4. This is a lunge from far back. Can he make it stick? He has the grip on the mini compound tyres, out traction him, and he does. He goes up into P3. Kevin there defends from Harm. Harm would have dearly loved to get past him quickly, but now he has to stay behind him in this middle set. We know Kevin Zilderberg is struggling in those hard compound tyres, and Harm there has to stay in P3. But can he make a move before the final few corners? No, he can't. He'll stay behind there. Or maybe he will make a move. No, he won't. He just used the boost mode for a split second, but chose to stay behind him. So 2 more laps left to go in this race. Botti, I think, will definitely win this Grand Prix, and what a Grand Prix it has been for Botti. The calm, calculated, clinical for the RP driver, and he's had Ryan on the back of him for the whole entire race there, but those two were just working together in tandem for the whole of it, and keeping each other in a good chance of winning the Grand Prix. Now Harm, will he make a move towards turn 3? Kevin's defending though, as he goes around the outside towards turn 3, but Kevin there blocks past him, and now Harm will have to get a better exit at turn 3 there. Use the battery as well for good measure, side by side with the Red Bull driver. Kevin is not yielding just yet, despite having a 3-second penalty, making it hard for Harm. Harm once again has to stay behind the Red Bull driver. Oh no, he almost spun the car. You can see him there struggling with the tyres. The tyres are starting to reach the end of their peak performance, and almost threw away a guaranteed podium. Richard and Ryan once again on the back of these guys. This could get interesting for the battle for P2 here. We know Kevin is the joker in P2 there because he has a penalty, but third, fourth and fifth wants a podium. One of those three unfortunately will not get a podium, Ryan, Richard or Harm, but we'll see what the order will be towards the end of this race. Botti, however, 4 seconds. Kevin will get a puncher. I'm calling it, says Real Who asked. So let's see if Kevin does get a puncher. 22 laps of the hard compound tyres is a monumental stint. The clouds are starting to gather. You can see the rain in the air, feel it. And now once again, Harm is side by side with Kevin. He outbreaks him. Oh, there's contact between those two, and Harm and Kevin off the track. Can Harm get on power? Yes, he can, just ahead of Richard and Ryan. Now these two are going side by side. Kevin becoming the antagonist in this race here, not letting anybody go, despite having a penalty. And Ryan has taken away P4. That could be a podium for Ryan, because Richard now will not get a podium, because Harm, Botti and Ryan are there first, third and fourth. That's a shame for Richard there. He's worked so hard in this race. But Kevin Soderberg causing all that towards turn 3, not letting these guys go whatsoever. And Harm is so furious stuck behind the Red Bull driver. Had he got past Kevin Soderberg, could he have caught Botti? And who's that there in the final 2 corners off the track? It looks like a Audi driver of Nicholas. But once again, we are on the final lap of the Grand Prix. What will the order be as Harm this time goes for a move and makes contact with Kevin there, wheel banging, and Harm finally surpasses Kevin and goes up into P2. But will Kevin fight back when they break it towards turn 2? That's the question. Harm will be very nervous to send the Red Bull in the slipstream and in the wheel tracks. Here comes Kevin, switches to the outside line towards turn 3. Harm covers the inside line, Can he get a better exit? That's the question there. Yes, he can. Harm gets a better exit and should stay in P2 theoretically, but Kevin will not give up at all. You can see Harm is harvesting, and here comes Kevin down the inside towards turn 4. This could get very sketchy indeed between the two, and Kevin takes away P2, but can Harm get a better exit? Remember, he's fighting with Ryan there because Ryan does not have a penalty, and now Harm is trying to go around the outside of Kevin, but Kevin defended like a lion or more and stays ahead for the time being. Look at Ryan around the outside towards turn 8. Can he make it stick? Almost indeed. He's still alongside there of Harm, but Harm inches forwards, but back towards Botti. Botti has returned and taken 3 for 3. Botti has won the Austrian Grand Prix, but what's going to be the order towards the end of this race? Kevin's in P2 and Harm holds on ahead of Ryan. Ryan's P3 and Richard is P4. And Kevin Soderberg finishes in P5. I dare say there'll be a lot of controversy towards in the Grand Prix because of Kevin's antics and defending there. He was not willing to let anybody go despite driving in frustration with a 3-second tablet indeed. I would have dearly loved to see Harm get past Kevin to see if the Dutchman could try and catch the Hungarian at Botti, but unfortunately we were denied that. But nonetheless, it was a great drive from P7 to P2 on the Austrian strategy indeed. The rain hasn't arrived just yet, but it is in the air, but won't affect this race as every single driver now crosses the line to finish this Austrian Grand Prix. The Austrian Grand Prix definitely delivered, of course, it always does, and Botti there ran away with it ever since Ryan made a mistake. Ryan will be kicking himself in frustration. He was sitting patiently in P2, but that small mistake had big consequences, and that consequence was P3 unfortunately for him. If he did make the mistake, it would have been a ding-dong battle between himself and Botti, but Botti was able to get free and get clear. It's 3 for 3, and Botti will take the championship lead. I'm going to say all credit towards Botti there. Never put a foot wrong and stayed calm all the way through this race. I didn't see him make a single mistake in the race. He refused to crack. He managed the gap, absorbed the pressure, and kept his composure when it mattered. This is your championship leader once again. His name is Botti, who returns to the top step of the podium again for the 3rd time.
Wow, what a race, and what a well-deserved victory it was for him. Like you said, no real mistakes made in this race. Kept his calm, kept his cool, and pulled off that strategy really well as well, and capitalized from others' mistakes, and deservedly is now our new championship leader. But what a chaotic end to the race that was. Those final few laps, high drama outside the fight at the front as well. We saw punctures for Lou and Nicholas, and also Fleur crashed on the final lap in the penultimate corner, and unfortunately dropped out of the points because of it. I must say also, well done to Wessel in the Haas. He's now the only driver to score points in every single race so far this season. All 5 rounds he's finished inside the top 10 due to that drama towards the end. But well, incredible drive from Botti, a well-deserved win, and Harman as well from 7th on the grid to take that podium. There's a real fight at the end there between Ryan, Richard and Kevin. But what a fight we have seen, what a race it has been, and I'm definitely looking forward to this fight for the remainder of the season. But one thing we do know for sure is that Botti has returned 3 for 3 this season. What a drive.
Indeed, it reminds me of Jeroen Visser and Milan Diossi as well, when they went 3 for 3 in the past few seasons as well. And Botti once again, the F3 champion, proving his status here in F2, continuing that impressive form and consistency in this season too. And let's see what happens in the next couple of races. Austria, it's been an absolute pleasure to commentate for as well. And we move on to the next race. I'm going to look to see what the next race is. I did remember, but I forgot to, what my memory is like. The next race is at the Imola Grand Prix, and that could be interesting indeed. That is a classic historic track with classic gravel traps as well. And there's definitely no room for error as well at the Imola Grand Prix. You're going to test the drivers' capabilities in that race too, test the skills, and we'll see who comes out top in Imola in a week's time. But hopefully you all enjoyed the Austrian Grand Prix. I have been Jamie Morris. Alongside me has been my Dutch co-commentator Milan Langer. And once again, Milan, success in this race. Thank you very much for being alongside me and commentating. It's always a pleasure to be alongside you, mate.
I agree, and thank you as well, as it was a lot of fun, like previous rounds have been, and I'm sure the second half of the season will be as much fun as well. So thank you as well once again.
Right, join us back then for the next race in round 6. We are past the halfway point. There is 5 races left to go. The next one is at the Imola Grand Prix next week, same time on Monday, at 7 p.m. UK time. But for now, we'll see you all later and enjoy the rest of the week, folks.